welcome to History Drinks. My name is James McWilliams here at Canlis Restaurant. I've been here for now 13 years, or just about 13 years, running this bar program, and it's been quite a pleasure. We do have a long history. The restaurant has been here since 1950. We'll be celebrating our 70th birthday here in December, which is pretty exciting. Although, it's going to be kind of weird this year. The drink we're talking about today is the Halekulani cocktail. We have a deep history with the island of Hawaii. Peter Canlis, who opened this restaurant in 1950, opened Canlis Charcoal Broiler in 1948 in Waikiki Beach. The address was 2100 King Kalakaua. It is now the home of the Luxury Mall. Just south of that, towards the beach, is the Halekulani Hotel, where Peter Canlis would stay, going back and forth between this restaurant and the restaurant in Hawaii. He spent a lot of time there. The hotel used to be owned by a prominent Pacific Northwest family. They sold it a few years ago, but there's quite a few connections between this drink, the hotel, and the Canlis restaurant. The drink here is the Halekulani. We have an ounce and a half of bourbon, a half ounce of lemon juice, a half ounce of orange juice, a half ounce of pineapple juice, and a quarter ounce of grenadine. The grenadine we make in-house here. It is pomegranate juice, sugar. We had a little bit of orange peel and spices, and we reduced that down a little bit. The bourbon, in this case, is Knob Creek. We generally use Knob Creek as our house bourbon, but in this drink, it sort of gives you just a little bit of vanilla and spice. So you can add all of these drinks to a shaker. There's a little Angostura bitters. So add all the drinks, the ingredients to the shaker, and then you're going to want to add ice. Now, when you're making this at home, your ice is very important. The ice here at the restaurant is very dense and hard, and so it doesn't dilute well. And keep in mind that your drink is going to be about 50% diluted ice at the end of it. So when you're making drinks at home, either make sure you have quality ice from your ice maker or go out and buy a bag of ice. I keep bags of ice at home for making cocktails. I shook it for about 15 seconds. Again, depending on the ice that you have at home, you're going to want to shake it probably a little bit less because it'll dilute a little bit quicker. You're going to strain this into a chilled cocktail glass. And then for garnishment, the drink does call for an edible flower. When it's in season, it's nice to get them from your garden. Otherwise, a lemon peel works equally well. And then just finish it with the expression of a lemon peel on top. And there you have the Halekulani cocktail.
Thanks, Mark McCandless, for sharing this recipe, and to James McWilliams, head barman of Canlis, for making it. And thanks for that bit of history about one of Seattle's oldest restaurants. And given that this is a cocktail mocktail hour, now might be a nice time for a little sip of my Halekulani. Now that I've got a wet whistle, let me welcome you to the first ever History Drinks, the virtual evolution of the History Link Luncheon in this time of COVID. We wish we could be with you all in person, but this is a wonderful alternative, so thanks for being here. My name is Rosette Royale, and I'll be your MC this evening. I'm a writer and storyteller here in the great big old Emerald City, and along with multiple gigs and side hustles, I'm also a writer for History Link. So tonight we're here to celebrate the rich multicultural heritage of Washington State. and to support an organization whose purpose is to document our history and history in the making as a way to improve our collective future. But we can't honor our history without honoring the people and the land that have made that history possible. So, History Link acknowledges that we are on the unceded ancestral land of the Duwamish and Coast Salish people. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Coast Salish tribes. May we always honor the indigenous people of the land we occupy and their presence in our lives in the past, the present, and the future. We also want to acknowledge our sponsors, the Association of Washington Cities, Canlis Restaurant, the Hugh and Jane Ferguson Foundation, Metis LLC, Dave and Chris Town, and Washington State Wine. Now, this is a fundraising event, and our goal this evening is to raise $95,000. Yes, so let's take a look at where we are now. Hey, that is nice. Look at that. More than 89,000 raised already. Thank you for your generosity, and let's keep it flowing. Beautiful. So, you'll see on the screen now that there are instructions for donating by text, if that's your favorite way to give. Otherwise, you can give on the event website where you're watching right now. Now, any day that you visit History Link's website, you'll find fun facts about key moments in history that happened on that particular day. Throughout tonight's event, we'll serve up little moments of state history that occurred today, October 1st. So let's start with a doozy, the official beginning of Washington State. That occurred on October 1st, 1889, when voters ratified the state constitution and elected Washington's first statewide officials, including its first governor, Elisha Ferry. Now, I'd like to introduce someone who may not be a state governor, but certainly governs what happens at History Link. She's also got a fantastic, amazing wardrobe that one day may get its own website. It's my pleasure to introduce Marie McCaffrey, the co-founder and executive director of History Link.
Thank you so much, Rosette. I want to say that the first time I met Rosette, he was wearing a chicken suit. Long story. I wish I could be with you tonight, but we can't. We have to meet this way. But hopefully next year, I'll see you at History Lunch, and we'll all get together again. I'd like to thank the board of History Link, who keeps us on schedule and keeps us healthy and creative. I would like to thank our writers and our editors and everyone who builds History Link. When COVID first started and we had to move home, it was very frightening. We didn't know what was going to happen. And our writers, some of our writers and our editors and our coders and even our accountant forgave one invoice. That was very helpful to us financially, but even more than that, it showed how much the people that build History Link care about it. And after that, I knew we were going to make it. So I want to thank all of you for doing that. It was such an important moment to get through this. We've been husbanding our resources carefully. Going into 2021, it's kind of a little scary of a year to go into. So we've cut our budget, we're tightening our belt. But there's one thing that we have not cut, and that's content. We are producing articles at the same rate now as we had planned to in the year. In addition to doing that, we have also been adding content, special content that has to do with this particular time. It's the thing that we can do. As you know, and I don't know how old you are, and I'm not telling you how old I am, but no matter what age you are, you're probably going to say, I never been through a time like this before. History's just being created all around us. And at HistoryLink, we are documenting this, we're archiving this, we're writing about it. We are coronavirus, Black Lives Matter protests, fires, all this. I mean, Jen Ott was writing the history of Waterfront Park, and it fell into the water. So that's just kind of how it's going. At the same time that history's like swamping us right now, our users are going up. In the summer and into the fall, our users have gone up 40%. So thank you so much for your support so that HistoryLink is here when everyone needs it. HistoryLink is an information utility. It's as important as water, light, heat. It is the thing that holds us as a community together and also helps us think about how we can become better. In the coming year, we're going to do a lot of things, and I don't have enough time to tell you all about them. I do want to just point out that there is a project that I'm very, very excited about, and if Walt was here, he'd be very excited about it too. It'd be the thing that I would want to leave behind. I hope I can tell you about it next year at History Lunch when I see you. I also want to mention very briefly that if you're a teacher or a parent who's teaching at home, we have a new resource called Cultivating Washington. It's on our site, and it is curriculum and articles and videos on the history of agriculture in the state of Washington. It's a terrific resource for you to teach at home or in the schools, or if you're just interested in agriculture. Resilience. So a little later, the great historian Margaret O'Meara is going to talk to you about resilience. But I would like you to go on HistoryLink and look up the articles on the 1918 pandemic, the fires, the protests, will the first person leaving Seattle turn out the light? All of those things, they have a theme when you read them, and that theme is that we do not only recover, we get better. And I, for one, cannot wait to see what comes out of this. I think there will be great things. In a couple of years, I'll say, I told you so. So thank you so much for being with us tonight and everything you do to make HistoryLink healthy and run, and now a little context.
The way we record our experiences have increasingly become digital. And instead of pulling a leather-bound encyclopedia off the shelf, we go to our computers. And that's what HistoryLink does. It's the translator of our human experiences into a digital medium. It's the memories that we hold in collective ownership that hold us together.
HistoryLink was conceived in 1997. My late husband, Walt Crowley, he was an activist and a writer. Walt came up with the idea to write an encyclopedia of King County history. My suggestion was, why don't we build it electronically instead of doing it on paper? And we couldn't find anybody that really understood what we're talking about, so we decided to do it ourselves.
You have to realize, when we started HistoryLink, nothing like this had ever been done on the internet before. There was no Wikipedia. So when we started setting this up as an encyclopedia, we kind of made our own road.
You are living in the middle of all of the history that went before you. You are in the midst of all of this, and you should know what it is.
We don't live in a vacuum. This is something we need to know our past to understand how we got to where we are today.
I think that the question would be not what kind of people could benefit, who can't?
We're the big port. I mean, we're the place that students and workers and creatives go to be able to access the archives.
We satisfy all those needs, all those different types of people. And yet here is a single source that each of them can use in their own way. Authors and filmmakers, journalists use HistoryLink a lot.
It's very democratic. That's the thing I think that really is key here. It's not that you read it and there is some sort of story that HistoryLink is trying to tell you. It is your raw material to tell your own story.
I really think HistoryLink is a public treasure. And I think we need to treasure it and make sure that it's preserved in a way that we can keep making those kinds of investments so it grows and grows and grows.
This is a hugely ambitious thing to think about. We're talking about millions and millions of documents and bits of information.
We often think of history as something that happened a long time ago, but it can also be something that happened yesterday. This year, a lot of history has been made, and we are capturing these stories on HistoryLink. Coronavirus, Black Lives Matter protests, and the fires rampaging through our region. We are writing these stories of our recent history so that there will be an accurate record for the future. This is also a time when educators are teaching remotely, and we are pleased that we can offer excellent educational tools, including our newly released suite of curriculum articles and videos called Cultivating Washington, the Story of Our State's Food, Land, and People.
There's always history out there to find, and there's always new history being added.
If we don't tell our story, who will?
HistoryLink is dedicated to the principle that history belongs to the entire community and that a better understanding of the past can lead to a better future. Over 20 years, we've published over 7,500 encyclopedia articles and 30 books. But our understanding of history isn't just limited to what can be read about the past. We can see and experience it. Though much in our state has changed, our history surrounds us all the time, especially if you know where to look. In 2019, HistoryLink jumped off the web page by launching a series of guided walking tours in the Seattle metropolitan area. The tours are written by our network of experts in local history, like Seattle's own Jackie Peterson. Jackie is a curator and historian whose expertise includes Black heritage and cultural sites in Seattle, among many other topics. She meticulously researched and designed HistoryLink's walking tour of the Central District, Seattle's hub for Black business and culture since the 1960s. From the CD's history of redlining to its ongoing cultural renaissance, Jackie's tour paints a vivid picture of the past and present in this vibrant neighborhood in the heart of Seattle.
History is present in everything we see and do. Today, we're going to take a walk and see HistoryLink's Central District walking tour in the historically Black neighborhood of Seattle. Hi, I'm Jackie Peterson, a public historian, independent curator, and writer for museums and cultural organizations in the Seattle area. Today, we're going to take a walk as part of the HistoryLink Central District walking tour. We're only going to visit some of the sites today, but for the full tour, please visit historylink.tours. And here we are at the Liberty Bank building, the first stop on the HistoryLink Central District tour. Liberty Bank is the first predominantly African-American owned bank in the city of Seattle. Located here in the Central District, Liberty Bank was a really important business in terms of helping out the Central District's residents have access to capital, to buy homes, to start businesses, all kinds of activities that African-American folks were not able to do due to the racism and discrimination that was prevalent in the city during the 1960s and 1970s. The bank building that you see today is actually a wonderful example of how the city has been able to preserve this very important story. The bank building itself was demolished, but because of community collaboration and the creative efforts of Africatown Seattle and Forterra, the developer, they were able to preserve certain elements of the building, such as the bank's vault door, the safe deposit boxes, and some of the original bricks from the building are featured on the building's exterior. Art was a super important part of the process and making sure that this building felt vibrant and a part of the community. All of the artwork in the building was commissioned by African American artists that are local to the Seattle area. And now we're going to head to our next stop, Wanawari. Wanawari is the newest addition to the Central District. It's a wonderful creative space that centers Black artists, Black musicians, Black writers. It's the former home of co-founder Inye Wakoma's grandparents, and it was established as a way to combat some of the gentrification that's happening around the neighborhood by repurposing this beautiful home into an art space. It's added such vibrance and creativity to the neighborhood. I hope you'll enjoy it. And now we're off to our next stop, Garfield High School, a landmark building in the Central District in the city of Seattle. Garfield High School is a landmark building here in Seattle, one of the few landmarked high schools in the city. It's been home to activists of multiple generations beginning in the 60s, where Garfield established one of the first Black student unions in the country. Garfield is also best known for its performing arts and music program, and some of its best known graduates include Quincy Jones, Lindy West, Evan Flory Barnes, and Jimi Hendrix. And on to our next stop, Pratt Park. We're here at Pratt Park in the Yesler area of the Central District. The park was named after Pratt as a way of honoring his legacy. Edwin T. Pratt was passionate about affordable housing for African Americans, as well as desegregating public schools. Pratt was assassinated in 1969 at his home in Shoreline, shortly after he moved there. He was the first African American to live in Shoreline. And now we're headed to our final stop, the People's Wall, a mural that honors Seattle's Black Panther Party. This mural was dedicated to the Seattle chapter of the Black Panther Party, which was the first chapter established outside of Oakland in 1968. Seattle Black Panthers were responsible for starting several services like the free lunch program, the Carolyn Downs Free Medical Clinic, and several Black student unions across the city, including the one that was started at Garfield High School. The Central District is one of the most vibrant neighborhoods in Seattle. It has historically been home to so many different kinds of people, from Japanese Americans, Jewish Americans, Italian Americans, and African Americans. Everything you see around you today happens and exists because of what came before us. This community wouldn't be what it is today if it weren't for the heart and soul of all of those who came before us. Please visit historylink.tours to access the Central District Tour and several other tours that will connect you to the history that's happening all around you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jackie. Seeing that video makes me long for Earls, Cuts, and Styles. Now, Jackie's tour mentioned Jimi Hendrix, the man who incinerated guitars and grew up in the Central District. On October 1st, 1970, His Royal Highness Jimi Hendrix was memorialized in Seattle and laid to rest in the Greenwood Memorial Park in Renton. Here with us tonight is another Seattle legend, Knut Berger, sometimes called Skip. He's the editor-at-large of Crosscut, host of the Mossbacks Northwest TV series on KCTS, and an expert on Seattle's unique history and heritage. And to add a twist to our first ever History Drinks event, we've asked Knut to challenge our audience to a Washington State trivia contest like no other. Knut joins us live this evening to lead us through the answers and to announce the winner. So please welcome Knut Berger.
Thank you, Rosette. I'm thrilled to be part of History Link's History Drinks, and was delighted to be tapped to write the trivia quiz, and I get to deliver the answers so you can see how much you knew or know about our state's history. We'll just go right in. The first question was, Tugboat Annie was the lovable Puget Sound waterfront character made famous in movies and short stories. What fictional town did Tugboat Annie reside in? Well, the answer is Tacoma, which of course was a blending of Seattle and Tacoma on Puget Sound. And there's a bonus question. What was her last name? It wasn't Tugboat, and it wasn't Annie. What was Tugboat Annie's last name? It was Brennan. The bonus question answer is Brennan. What was J.P. Patches's job? J.P. Patches. And I will not accept clown as an answer. He was mayor of the city dump. That's right, he was mayor of the city dump. And I don't think anybody ever tried to recall J.P. Patches. Certainly I didn't. Which Klondike Gold Rush era restaurant made the Dutch baby famous? And I hope if you were lucky enough to have a mother or father who made you Dutch babies, you would know a little bit about its history. It was made famous here in Seattle. It's kind of a deep dish pancake. Anyway, the answer is Monka's. The restaurant was Monka's, and the family still lives in town. The builder, let's see, who was the pike in Pike Street? Was it a turnpike? I've had people tell me they thought it was Pike's Peak. And please, it's like fingernails on blackboard if you say Pike's Market. Please tell your friends not to say that and your newcomer visitors. The answer is John Pike, who designed and helped construct the Washington Territorial Museum, University Museum, the Washington University, Territorial University here in Seattle. He was a friend of Arthur Denny. So Pike is actually a person. John Pike. What was the Silver Slug? Some people could guess this. It was the streamlined Art Deco super ferry, the Kala Kala. In which Seattle restaurant did Bruce Lee work? I like to think that I might have dined there while he was working there in the 1960s. It was Ruby Chow's on First Hill. No longer there, but a wonderful, wonderful restaurant. What strange creature lurks in the soil of the Palouse? Well, it's the great white earthworm. They were said to grow as long as 6 feet and were snowy white. Who made Seattle under protest? Well, if you answered Jesus Christ, you are correct. That's from the mnemonic device that helps you remember the order of the downtown street grid. Jesus Christ built Seattle under protest. Some people say pressure, but I like protest. Which Seattle dancer is thought to have inspired the shape of the Space Needle's tower? It was Sevilla Fort. She was a black dancer. She was at Cornish. She went on to Broadway and Hollywood. And she is thought to have been the woman who inspired a sculpture called the Feminine One, which then inspired Victor Steinbrueck, the architect, to design that sort of wonderful stalk and flower-shaped base of the needle. And the last question was, who was the first elected mayor of Seattle who was born in the city of Seattle? And this answer, I think, would surprise most people. It's Jenny Durkin. She was the first native Seattleite to be elected mayor of Seattle, and that was not that long ago. We'll go to the winners now. Carol Cropley is the winner of the trivia quiz. The runner-up is Allison Krupnick. And Carol Cropley is going to get a $75 gift certificate to Ivers. I could spend that much just on clam nectar. And Allison is going to get one of History Link's, her choice of one of History Link's marvelous books. So thanks to everyone who took on the Trivia Quiz Challenge. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for all that mind-bogglery, Knut. That's fantastic. And congratulations to Carol Cropley. Nice work, nice work. And I'll be seeing you there, and we're going to have some nice fish and chips together. You got some serious history chops. And for all the folks who didn't win, don't worry, because I can still see your smarts right now when I'm looking at you, and it's shining all over you. And if you've ever gone to our website, you can take your smarts right there, and you probably already know that on October 1st, 1968, Chicano students at the University of Washington established the first chapter of the United Mexican American Students outside of California. Information like this comes to us through people with some serious IQ, my fellow History Link writers. Our historians come from all corners of Washington State. They are experts, researchers, storytellers, and more. And these people work hard, I mean hard, to share what they know. And as a History Link writer myself, I'm telling you, it is work, but it is beautiful work, so beautiful. And History Link is built on their passion, talent, and dedication of these writers. You don't believe me? Take a look.
And the question would be, what do I like about writing for History Link? Is that the question? I'm a historian with History Link, and I have written hundreds of essays and 4 books. And one of the things I love about writing for History Link is the incredible breadth of topics that I get to write about. I mean, I've written about Chief Kamayakan. I've written about the Seattle Supersonics, and my next piece is going to be a biography of Edgar Martinez of the Mariners. I was a journalist for decades. Journalism lasts for a day. History Link is going to last for hundreds of years, and I really do believe that. I think that it will be available to people for a really long time, and what we write is really important because it will set the stage for what a lot of researchers do after us.
History Link has helped me find a platform for amplifying the lesser-known stories of people of color in Washington State. Thanks to History Link, I've been able to write the stories of Tacoma's Japantown, which existed before the war. History Link has been a launching pad for my work on Vashon Island, Tacoma, with Japanese American farmers. It's led to walking tours of Tacoma's historic Japantown. It's led to Days of Remembrance. It's led to me being a flashpoint for Tacoma's former Japanese Americans searching for their family history here. And it's led me to the publication of my first book, which was a biography and oral history of Senator Rosa Franklin.
I just like to learn about all types of things, from people to towns to unique stories about Washington State. So what I want people to get out of the essays that I write is something new that they learn, something they can get excited about, know that the research of that particular subject was deep. I go really deep into my essays. I go so deep, I get on my last nerves. But that's how I am. I think the details are important for individuals to know about a particular subject.
I'm Paula Becker, and I've been writing for History Link since 2001. One of my favorite things about working for their website is that people get so excited when they find out that I write for History Link, because they say, I love History Link. I've heard probably hundreds of people say that. And they launch into what they love about it, how it has helped them discover the stories of people in the state. And I feel like that's really one of the most important things that History Link can do, is it can bring stories from the past and help us get context for our present. It's been something that I've liked to do to find a national story like dance marathons or the 1918 flu pandemic, and find out how that story played out in Washington State. And it's really fascinating to personalize something that you know happened on a national level and then find out how did it play out in Tacoma, how did it play out in Snohomish County, how did it play out in Everett, and all of those places, the history that we're able to bring forward just sparkles. And History Link is a wonderful, wonderful way for people to see those gems and examine them and make them part of their life.
There's no law that says innovative, groundbreaking historical research has to be presented in 500-page tomes in 10-point fonts and no images. What History Link does is it takes history and presents it to its most important audience. And that's not an academic audience. That audience is everyday people out there in the world making decisions in their own contexts based on their historical understanding.
I have to say, I've just been really lucky getting to work both in an administrative role at History Link and as a writer for the site. And in those roles, I've gotten to do a wide array of things. I've gotten to work on the Milepost 31 Visitor Center, which was part of the Alaskan Way Viaduct Replacement Project. I've done consulting on the waterfront planning as they have begun to undergo that massive transformation project there. I've gotten to work with the editorial teams in Snohomish County and Pierce County, which has been a wonderful experience getting to know writers from those areas and other people who are interested in those areas' histories. And then I've gotten to write on an incredible variety of topics for the site, everything from the Port of Chinook to the Snoqualmie Skykomish watershed to the Sunset Highway, to town histories, just all sorts of interesting things. So why does this matter now? Why do we need to be studying history? And I love history. I love the dusty records in the archives. I love an old map. I get a thrill when I uncover a letter tucked into a file. Those glimpses into the past are just intrinsically interesting to me. But today, knowing our history feels urgent. It feels necessary in order to effectively navigate our way forward. We have to understand where we've come from in order to understand where we might go from here. Otherwise, we're just blindly feeling our way forward. And I'm so proud to have contributed to this great body of knowledge that is on History Link today. It's available to everyone, anytime, for free, from anywhere. And all of those things have become just exponentially more important this year.
Love those writers. Love them, love them, love them. Yes, I do. But it's not just the writers who can help us understand our history. History Link offers the community a chance to be part of documenting the world around us. Passionate people have approached History Link to commission an article on something or someone that may have otherwise been overlooked. One of those passionate people is Karen Gordon. Karen served as the City of Seattle's Historic Preservation Officer for over 30 years. Through a donation, Karen commissioned a History Link essay to ensure someone she felt had made a difference in the fabric of the city was recognized. And here she is to talk about it.
Good evening. My name is Karen Gordon, and I was the City of Seattle Historic Preservation Officer for 32 years and a longtime supporter of History Link since its inception more than 20 years ago. Historic preservation is about the identification and protection of historic properties. Inherent in that mission is to educate people about the buildings and objects and sites we cherish in Seattle. Not only the architects and craftspeople who designed and built them, but the people who lived and worked in them and the communities they created. Part of what drew me to Seattle in 1984 was the citizen activism that saved Pioneer Square and the Pike Place Market, and the vision the people of Seattle had in recognizing our heritage and the role it played in telling our story, not only about the past, but who we wanted to be. There were a lot of people involved in those battles. Some became more well-known than others. Others were quietly working behind the scenes. One of those people was Peggy Corley. Last year at the History Link lunch, I made my annual contribution to commission an essay about Peggy, who had passed away just a few months before. It occurred to me that many of the people who were not in the headlines were also absent from our history, and I wanted to begin to correct that. Peggy was one of the first people I met when I came to Seattle. She had served as the chair of the first Landmarks Preservation Board and as the chair of the first Washington State Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. She wrote many of the landmark nominations for the City of Seattle and National Register nominations for the city. And more importantly, she was part of the group that wrote the Seattle Landmarks Preservation Ordinance that has endured for almost 50 years, and not without many attempts to dismantle it. Even after I retired, city staff could still rely on Peggy to tell us about any provision in the ordinance. She worked tirelessly to document and preserve the city's heritage. She was the first curator at MOHI and went on to become the president of their board and served as a volunteer until her last days. But you can read all about that in the essay that's now on the History Link site. Her obituary put it best. If you see a historic building in Seattle, Peggy likely played a role in its preservation. To me, Peggy was literally one in a million. She led by example and was a mentor and a friend to me and countless others throughout the years. She defined for me what it is to be a citizen. It is important for those stories to be told, and there are a lot of those stories by many of the people who are listening now about people that you know or knew who were leaders and, like Peggy, led quietly. History Link has a list of a number of people and events that still need to be documented, and I would urge you to support them through your contribution today. If you know of someone else who's not on the list, there's also an opportunity to do that, and I urge you to do that as well. You'll be glad you did. I know I plan to.
Thanks, Karen, for stepping up and for your work to preserve the legacy of what has come before. Of course, Karen came up with her own idea, but at History Link, we've got a couple of ideas of people and places and events that we'd like to see become part of our website, and we call them History Link's Most Wanted. And if you've got the inclination, you can help fund the effort to research and write about our most wanted items. There are some good ideas there, and we'd love it if you could help turn those ideas into reality. Speaking of reality, part of why we're here tonight is to help raise money for History Link, and we've been tracking how much we've raised on this handy-dandy thermometer. And it would be a good idea to see how much we've raised so far. So let's take a look. Hey, what? Look at that! That is $92,459. Just a smidge more, people. We are so close. We are so close. Listen, you know what? That makes me have a sip, and let's see. When we finish, I'm going to finish this mocktail. So we're almost there. And to talk a little bit more about our goal, we have a special guest. That's right, Seattle luminary and a really fantastic person, C.R. Douglas. CR is a longtime TV radio analyst on Washington State politics. He's been an MC for 1, 2, 3 history lunches and a supporter from the beginning. My pleasure to welcome C.R. Douglas.
Hello, history lovers. What a treat to be drinking with you all tonight and being so close to that fundraising goal of $95,000. Now, as you know, and as Rosette just mentioned, I've been involved with several History Link lunches as an MC, but this year I have a different role. Today I come in a more personal capacity to tell my story about how much I love this organization and why I hope you will share my enthusiasm for it. You know, I get asked a lot by students who want a career in media, hey, what did you major in? How did you get to where you are? Were you in journalism? Were you a communications major? Did you study political science? And the answer is none of the above. I majored in history. That's right, American history, in fact. And that background has been so important and crucial for my career in TV and radio. So much of what we cover in the news are just the current unfoldings of events and decisions that were made in the past. You know, it's been said many times, we've all heard this quote, that history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it sure does rhyme. And having a background in history, having a background in spotting those rhymes has been a key for me delivering viewers and listeners the best insight I can. Now, when it comes to knowing and understanding local history, listen, there is no better resource than HistoryLink. I can't tell you how many times I have consulted the site for a TV or radio story I'm working on, and it's not just me. I mean, every newsroom I've worked in has relied on it. You'd be surprised, in fact, how many times someone on Deadline has yelled across a newsroom about a question that's urgent, and the shout comes back, "Check HistoryLink." Yes, it does happen all the time, which means that the coverage that you all get on local media here, on TV, on radio, in print, is definitely better because HistoryLink is a resource for all of us working in news. Now, I've been a fan of this site from the very beginning. In fact, I had the privilege of interviewing Walt Crowley, the founder and intellectual force behind this whole thing, way back in 1999 when this site was just being launched. I think they just had a web page. That was all there was, but it was a powerful idea, and you could hear the energy and the vision in Walt. And I interviewed him several times over the years, kind of checking in and getting an update on the site as it unfolded and grew, all the way up until the last TV interview he ever did before he died an untimely death. He created such a special resource, a resource that we all are privileged to have now. And so it's your chance to show how much you appreciate not just Walt, but this incredible organization, how much you value what the HistoryLink team has done to keep our past alive in such accessible and beautiful ways. And I mean beautiful. I am always amazed every time I click on the site how beautifully and elegantly designed it is, how amazing the pictures are. And the books, talk about Class A elegance. They are beautiful, beautiful publications. And all you have to do to help this continue is just click on the donate button right there on the top of your screen. You see that right now. We also are going to make it very easy for you if you want to give by phone. You just text "give to HL" and type in 41444. You see that right there at the bottom of your screen. That's another easy way to give. Now, I want to just focus on two levels of support because they're very important and they will truly make you a history maker. The first is the $1,500 level. You will be able to bring to life one of HistoryLink's most wanted stories. You've heard about these a couple times already tonight. These are the important topics that up to now, HistoryLink hasn't been able to commission yet for the site. Now, you can search the 10 most wanted story subjects right now and decide for a $1,500 gift which one you want to make a reality. Right there, they include the important and troubling history of redlining in our region, the little-known history of forest fire lookouts, very timely given our summer of smoke, and the history of one of our oldest cultural institutions, the Seattle Symphony. Believe it or not, none of these stories has yet been fully told on HistoryLink, and you can be the one to make it happen. Check that most wanted list and make one of those stories come to life. Now, another level I want to highlight is special also. For a gift of $2,000, $2,000, you will be able to choose the story of your own to be commissioned and written for the site for all time. What's an important part of our history that you want to make come alive and that you want told? Here is your chance. So I strongly encourage anyone who is at all tempted by either of those levels, 1,500 or 2,000, bite the bullet and go for it. Right now, we are so close to getting to that goal of $95,000. What an amazing achievement that will be, especially in the era of virtual events. Every level is important, but I will say about these two levels, they are only available now at that rate for the History Drinks event. Later, they will go up to the larger, higher amount. So now's your time to get in and quite literally be a history maker. But before I leave, I also want to just make it clear that every gift, of course, does make a difference. Every gift really does help make history and advance the organization. So give what you can. Give at any level. $50, $500. There is a place for everyone, for all of you at HistoryLink. What a joy it has been to be part of yet another annual event for this great site. You can bet that during the year ahead, I will be using HistoryLink probably more than I ever had before in my work in TV and radio. We thank you all so much for your support this year and for the support you've given all along to this organization. And cheers to HistoryLink.
Thank you so much, CR. Thank you. And cheers to you. And cheers also to Marie McCaffrey.
Hello. Thank you so much, CR. That was so sweet. I am delighted to be able to introduce Margaret O'Mara. She is a history professor at the University of Washington. She is a contributor to the op-ed page of the New York Times. She's an author. Her newest book is The Code, which I highly recommend. And she's also a board member of HistoryLink. Her areas of expertise are probably more than this, but include technology, the growth of cities, politics, and economics. So I would like to present Margaret O'Mara and her talk on resilience. Margaret.
Hi, History Linkers, or I should say history drinkers. Thank you so much for supporting HistoryLink and being here tonight. I'm Margaret O'Mara. When I was first asked to do this talk, it was a long time ago, when we were thinking we were going to do it in person. And what I was planning to talk about were the secrets of this region's success, and what are the ingredients for why this has become such a vibrant region, and what were the things that make Seattle and Western Washington what it is. I've pivoted a bit, as we all have in 2020, and tonight I want to talk not about the secrets of our success, but the secrets of our resilience, and what past crises can help us learn and think about as we navigate this one. Let's first talk about a century ago, the last pandemic, the influenza epidemic of 1918. Seattle did better than a lot of other places around the world. We wore our masks, we socially distanced, but 1918 was just a prelude to a tumultuous 1919, which was marked by the general strike, the largest in American history to that point. 65,000 Seattle workers walked off the job in solidarity with striking dock workers. And it was a moment of extraordinary community solidarity, not only in this collective strike, but also by putting up temporary cafeterias to feed the striking workers. This is a photograph, by the way, like many that I pulled from HistoryLink, that it was an example of how solidarity, broad-based solidarity and community solidarity could be something that could sustain a community through a crisis. Seattle and the region got back to normal. The masks were off. The strike was ended. And by 1920, downtown Seattle looked much like it had in 1917 before it all happened. But yet, normalcy can return, but some things do change for good. And I think a big takeaway from that moment, those multiple crises that hit in 1918 and 1919, was the importance of community solidarity, not only in weathering a pandemic, but also in coming together in collective action and political protest. The general strike was short-lived, but it was something that left a long shadow in terms of worker activism, in labor mobilization, and in cooperative business enterprise that lasts until this day. The next crisis, the Great Depression, the great economic crisis of the 1930s, Seattle and Western Washington hit particularly hard by that crisis. But also what happens in the Pacific Northwest, as it does in the rest of the country in response to that crisis, is a massive public investment in infrastructure, including dams like the Grand Coulee, which was originally conceived as a project to irrigate the agricultural interior of eastern Washington and central Washington, turns out to be a major jobs program that puts a lot of unemployed people back to work. But another offshoot is that it creates cheap hydroelectric power that powers western Washington and enables, among other things, an aerospace industry to grow here and grow very large in the 1940s and beyond. One of the lessons of that, the investments of both the 1930s New Deal and then World War II, all of the mobilization of World War II, which was directed and instigated and catalyzed and funded by the federal government, but also by state and local governments as well, is how actions taken during crises, particularly public sector investment, has long and sometimes unexpected effects. The investments made in military technology during World War II and during the Cold War, for example, become the foundation for the tech industry that grows after. The last of the third crises that I want to talk about is, of course, the Boeing bust of the early 70s. Again, another photograph, like all of these that you will find on HistoryLink. And this famous billboard with the last person leaving Seattle, turn out the lights. After Boeing sheared off more than 60,000 workers from its regional workforce, and all these other layoffs rippled out through the economy, it wasn't clear what Seattle's next act would be. But what's so interesting is what happens in the 1970s is that crisis creates space for creative new enterprises to emerge. People stuck around Seattle. People wanted to stay in this region and this state. There was a quality of life here. There were things that kept people here, and they didn't want to leave, even though the major driver of the economy had gotten derailed. And so you see the creation of companies in the 1970s that become the iconic companies of Seattle of today, whether it be Starbucks or Microsoft. You see the foundations that make Seattle the region that is known for, among other things, its very significant high-tech workforce. But I want to leave you with a really important question that is raised by other things that we have experienced and continue to experience in this extraordinary year, which is, who has this Seattle's resilience benefited? Who has benefited from this innovation economy in its various forms over the last century? And one of the things that has been laid bare by both the great inequities of the coronavirus pandemic itself, and also the economic ripple effects of the shutdown and the business closures and unemployment that has resulted, is that prosperity and the prosperous economy in this region and elsewhere has been enjoyed by only a portion of the population and not by everyone. And oftentimes the difference between the haves and the have-nots breaks down on race and has to do with long established patterns of racial injustice. Seattle likes to think of itself as a place that is politically progressive, that is has historically not had the problems that other parts of the country have. And when we have taken an honest look at its history, we see that that is not the case at all. And in fact, the patterns of exclusion and inequity have very deep roots in this region. They are patterned on the way that this city and this region have grown through suburbanization and private real estate development that embedded racial covenants that restricted who could buy and who could rent in certain parts of the city and the region. And that legacy, although those racial covenants are no longer enforced, and in most cases, we hope, no longer actually in the documents that when people purchase homes, we see the legacy of that in Seattle today, where we have diversity that not only tracks kind of historic places in which people of color, particularly Black Seattleites, were redlined to the Central District in South Seattle, but also now more recently seeing that how economic inequities tracks with racial inequity, and that where you have the more higher price central areas of the city of Seattle and the inner suburbs are whiter, and the outlying suburbs are more diverse. So I think one of the things to think about in the keys to resilience, how does a place like Seattle reinvent itself over and over? It's quality of place, a place that people want to come to and want to stay. It's institutions, from the University of Washington to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to the Fred Hutch to institutions like HistoryLink that keep it a vibrant, diverse economy. But it's also about people. It's investing in people. Who gets to be the innovators, who has the opportunities to start companies or to start new enterprises or participate and realize their full creative and economic and social potential. And so really the last factor, which is something that Seattle has not necessarily gotten right, nor have other innovation capitals gotten right, as we're seeing quite vividly in 2020, is opportunity, and extending opportunity as widely as possible. And so when we think about what's next after our intermission, after we make it through this year, and we will indeed make it through this year, what happens next? And how can we rebuild and find weather our next crisis in a way that not only brings the city back to the way it was, but also expands opportunity and thinks more broadly about who can be part of it. Thanks so much for having me, and cheers.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Margaret. Loved what you had to say about resilience and ensuring that everyone reaps equal rewards, and we need to keep a read on that. And you know something else people read? Thermometers. So we're going to read our fundraising thermometer right now. Let's see what it says. Hey, hey, hey! Yay! $95,364. We met our goal. Fabulous. It is. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for helping us here at HistoryLink tonight. Thank you for reading our site. And you know, earlier this evening, Marie mentioned that the first time she saw me, I had a chicken suit on. Well, the chicken suit is at the chicken suit repair shop right now. But I also happen to have this onesie that I thought I'd bring on for the end of our show here for History Drinks. You notice this onesie has lots of little hearts on it? That's how we think about you. We love you. We really do. And we love you for reading us and being here with us tonight. And we look forward to seeing you again real soon. So take care. Be well. We love you. Stay safe. Until the next time.